typing to go. And
Okay, we will call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a roll call.
Andy Mary,
Yes.
Jim Balter,
Here.
Dr. Dave Bardo,
Here.
Dr. Noel Deep, Jill Maddock Nelson,
Here.
Mary Neufeld,
Here.
Danny Pyatt,
Here.
JD Schrader. It's gonna call in, got the numbers. Angel Zimmerman,
Here.
Okay, and is there public comment, Amy?
There isn't anybody listed.
Okay. And then we'll go on to the COVID update.
I know what you're all thinking, but I actually don't have any information to share regarding a COVID update. Darlene tells me we have no current positives of student or staff of which we are aware. Graduation, for those of you who were there, went really well. We made it until the R's of the student list until the rain droplets started. And just a lot of compliments and notes of appreciation from our students and families that we were able to have it with the increased tickets and outdoors, and thanks to everyone for the setup. And of course, students are finished for the school year, summer learning's in progress, and also staff finished today. So thanks to everyone. We made it, and I am really happy to have this be my, for the time being, final COVID update. So,
Okay, thanks for that. And we will go on to new business and board member meetings and legislative report. Has anybody been to any meetings or have anything they want to report from meeting with legislators or contacting? No. Okay, we'll go on to item B, board workshop and team building discussion.
so if we could start with the board workshop idea, we had intentionally waited until after the election, so we have this current board and wanted to talk about ideas for a board workshop. So Louise Blankenheim from WASB contacted Mary Kay and said, really, what are we looking for? And she'd be happy to come and work with us. So we had determined earlier, and really would like to revisit at this time, is community engagement still where the board would like to put its efforts in terms of a workshop? If so, we'll get that scheduled.
I think that was our lowest scoring area.
It was.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay.
What were the other areas that?
We had a document that we can share with new board members, Mary Kay, where it's a self-evaluative tool that we take each year. So that'll help answer those questions. Thanks, Mary Kay.
I also asked Andy and Julie this question too, just about even doing some icebreakers and getting to know each other. Maybe scheduling a separate meeting, or we came 15 minutes early before we actually start, just so we can kind of understand why everybody's on the board, and be stronger together. So, yeah, if they do that, great, but just little things that don't take a lot of time.
Do you have some fun ones to suggest?
Well, I can come up with some, yeah.
And we do that as an admin team too. We call them check-ins, and in fact, just yesterday, this was part of our last meeting with all staff, and we borrowed it from another presenter, but which 5 song titles could you not live without right now? I mean, it just says a lot about the person. It's fast, and we wouldn't have to do 5 of anything, but if it's amenable to people, we could have one such quick question at the start of each meeting or something.
I'm game.
Would people rather have it at the start of the meeting, or would we rather come 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early?
Oh,
And
that-
do it as not part of the meeting?
What was it? You're gonna miss it if you want to do that.
I mean, even if we did it once a month.
I like the
couldn't
idea,
come in to
Angel.
come early. I sometimes barely make it here by 6.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not the only one, I mean. Yeah.
It could even be part of the roll call. At certain meetings, your answer to say you're here is your answer to the check-in question or something.
Would that work for you, Angel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about teamwork and getting to know people, so,
Okay.
yeah, so it doesn't have to take, nobody wants to listen to somebody talk for 5 minutes about themselves, so.
Okay,
Right.
so this will be, we'll go ahead and give it a try at
Okay.
regular board meeting, COW meeting.
Probably regular because they're typically shorter.
Okay? And you're going to take care of the details.
I can, unless,
I'll work with you.
sounds good.
I failed
Why not make
already.
that up? Okay, so we are, 2021-22 support staff wages.
So as you recall, at a recent meeting, you approved step advancements per the salary schedule for certified staff that you had approved in November. And those advancements then with increased salary came right around the first of the year for certified staff. Well, we're here now for support staff. And as you can see, we've attached the schedule, and it indicates a 1.23%, which is the current CPI on each step and lane that you see there. So with your, if there are no questions, we would bring this back to you then for approval at the next meeting.
Andy, I'd like the record to reflect my recusal of discussion and the vote.
Okay?
So Jim sent an email to me this morning that I responded to. And in simple layperson's language, we essentially are using an average CPA year over year. And
CPA or CPI?
I'm sorry, CPI, year over year. And so we're looking at 2019 versus 2020. And if you look at, to me, that's not reflective of currently what we're seeing with the economy right now, because it looks like, when you look at the CPI over April, I think that was at about, I've forgotten already, but I think it was 3.2%. So we're seeing the economy heat up, so that index doesn't really reflect what's currently happening. A 1.23% represents about $37,000 of staff increases. So by doing this lag, it hurts us as the economy is ramping up. By being consistent and being, essentially it's a year delay. So we've had instances back in, like when you think of 2007 and 2008, or when the economy is slowing down, they're using a 12-month lag, and that's sort of that's when we catch up. We're not tied to that. In my email, I give examples of districts that are. It's just a guideline that we kind of developed the budget on.
So next year, this time, we'd be looking closer to a 3.5% increase?
Well, and Jim, I'm not an economist, so I don't understand what a non-adjusted CPI is versus at the year end, they do an adjustment, and it all get adjusted out, but currently on average, that would be closer to it, yeah.
Tim, is that the amount that was given to certified staff?
The average, so with the certified staff, they're able to, we you've got lanes, it's, you know, it's kind of a lane and step kind of a thing.
I understand.
And on average, over the whole staff, that's closer to a little bit over 3%.
So I guess my question is, why don't we give the certified staff 3% like we did or give these people 3% since we gave 3% to the
You
teachers?
know, and that's certainly within the realm of possibilities.
And I, you know,
And
and I always go back to how much money we put away last year. So when we were putting away
Recognize,
$910,000, we can certainly come up with 3% for the certified staff, I would think. Or for
and
the
I just wanted to point out
non-certified
that
staff.
some will be moving based on years of service, so
Sure.
that is,
That's an additional, I
Yeah.
understand that.
yep.
Okay, I've got a couple questions.
Sure, Mary.
How many groundskeepers are there?
One,
So that's like what, that's Jake? Who's the groundskeeper?
it's an hourly position,
Hmm?
so would it's an hourly position?
So there's only one
Correct.
for all the, and they oversee what goes on at the buildings, or do they do the actual, like,
They're the one that's doing the snow plowing, the lawn mowing, all of that.
okay, I don't know, I just, and some of you already know, I've got this hang up about curb appeal. When I was walking in, the dandelions that are growing up out here outside the front door are ridiculous, they're as big as trees. And I look and they're kind of, they're at the bottom of the pile there. And then I go back and we have also had this discussion about the instructional assistants, both regular ed and special ed. And I still feel that they should be somewhere higher on the classification. Especially the special ed,
And you did just authorize an increase for that position last time we brought this to you.
yeah. I just,
Your
I just look
comments
at
were
it and I
noted.
think, okay, you got the groundskeeper and that's a big job and it's, several buildings but then I look at the ones that are changing diapers and feeding and, all the things that they do and how important regular ed instructional assistants are. And it's, and I don't know now if every building has, if the elementary buildings, do they each have a regular ed instructional assistant, Julie?
No, but we're hoping to add a position like that
Okay.
for the fall.
Because we never had one at West. And, just an extra set of hands for 10 minutes of the day or whatever would be great. But I don't know, I guess, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of what gets done and how much needs to be done and I don't know, the classification. And I get that some of them are year-round positions and some of them are just 9 months for the school year positions, but I get concerned about the number 4 and number 5.
What'd you say, so at 1% was the 36%?
1.32 is roughly 36.
And what is Dave's 3%?
Well, it would be almost 2.5 times that, yeah.
How do we compare to other districts that are similar to our size?
Is no one here yet?
Yep, we ran those comparables too, and I don't want to speak for you, Melanie, but when we brought this to you, it was last year in the fall.
November.
Yeah. We had it reflected increases so that we would be more comparable and competitive.
So we did those increases then, or they're written into this?
Increases then, this would be an additional increase, which we review each year.
Julie, maybe we can provide them with more detail in the weekend review or in a separate letter, and we can look at rerun those comps and see how we compare. And is there consensus on where we want to be with the percentage? And that would be helpful, we can address that as well.
I mean, are we retaining people in these positions as is now?
Yes.
Yes, we've had,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm kind of in alignment with Dr. Bardo, where we don't want to be having staff lose money on their paychecks because of inflation over the coming year. And I know we're kind of grasping at straws at this point because we don't have any concrete evidence going forward, but I think all the signs are pointing to yes that, well, I'm speaking out of my area of expertise, so I should probably stop, but with what we know is that the increase isn't as big as we're hoping for, and so I feel like we should explore higher opportunity, higher percentage so that we can give them a higher comp.
I think it's good to look at that, but, while we have money we put away this year, in 2 years, we're gonna have twice as much that we don't have. So,
An additional 305,000.
that'll be 1/6 of the 2 million.
You feel better about 3%, Dave, or 2?
No, really?
Yeah, really.
I asked 3%. I mean, let's face it, our teachers teach our kids, but without the support staff to support not only in the classroom, but to take care of our buildings and the outsides of our buildings, we'd have problems. And they need to be compensated so that we're able to keep them.
So do you think we need more data, or do you want a motion?
I'll make a motion that Tim comes back with 3%. for
Tim was
support
offering
staff.
to do that, to come back with more information, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't require a motion.
Okay, no problem.
More information would include comparables to other districts?
I'm trying to get you information by the end of the week, and we'll take a look at what information. We do a salary survey annually, and I don't know if we have
We have,
updated this.
I think in hindsight, we should have some of the support
A
staff.
survey, we won't be able to, it won't be totally complete, but
Sure.
it'll be maybe 8 to 10 schools probably, current this year's data.
Okay, so we'll do that. And then we can move on to item D, the 2021-2022 Employee Handbook Overview.
So you see, as we do each year, the recommended changes are on the attachment. Melanie Ryan from HR is here this evening to answer any questions you have about the changes in red, and then the bottom sections are new or additional.
Okay, anybody have any questions? If not, this will be coming back for approval at the regular meeting.
Correct.
Okay. And the 2021-2022 budget update.
Bless you.
This is the time where we're kind of, it's pretty hectic in the business office. And I was really hoping to provide shed a little light about how this year's budget is going to end. And then I included some information on how I wanted to, some assumptions I wanted to make as we build the budget for next year. So in looking at activities in the office right now, I've got a pretty good handle on where we're gonna end for non-salary, and so I'm looking at supplies, services, transportation, all those kinds of things. I know where we're gonna end there. The biggest, it's called accrual accounting. And our teachers get paid through July, their benefits run through August, and we bring those back through a process called payroll payables. And at this point, with the start of summer school, finishing up with co-curriculars, I just don't have a good handle on how we're going to end the year with the salary and benefit budget. I do know that we had positions that weren't filled and with benefits in the salary budget to the tune of almost $250,000 in savings. We also received an unexpected Medicare payment from prior 2 years ago. One of the big factors that this time of the year that I'm paying pretty close attention is open enrollment. The ins and outs and everything that's happening with the budget, with DPI. They look at that, and the last time they updated that was back in May. So now we're getting to the final line, and it looks to be that our ins and outs are about 70,000. We received 70,000 less in aid than I had budgeted for. So we had a little more activity going out than we originally anticipated. So the long and the short of it, and I certainly wouldn't want you to hold me to this, I think there's a likelihood that we're going to be in that neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000, where out of a $30+ million budget, that we will have extra. And I would like, my plan would be to sweep with any other expended funds, and now ask for a very specific motion, probably in July, because we have till the end of July to do that. But we would sweep those accounts into our Fund 46. So essentially, we want to fully expend our general fund budget. Now, what's important as a board member, you're going to see us building fund balance. And the reason we're going to build fund balance this year is because common school library funds, those are designated strictly for the library. Our librarian had missed a significant amount of work this year, so we have unexpended funds that can only be used in the IMCs of the buildings. The other thing we have is AGR monies. We will underspend the AGR grants, and those again are designated specifically for K through 3, and they can't be used anywhere else. So you're going to see those funds carry over.
Can we carry over a bunch of AGR money last year?
Correct.
So is this kind of the same money that carried over, a portion of it?
Amy and I have been working very closely to plan for next year and beyond. And, COVID put a little wrinkle in it. We've used the federal monies to offset some of all of our plans, particularly with staffing. But we're going to be adding instructional coaches and.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. In the past, you may have recalled in some of the AGR reporting from the elementary, which you'll see today as well when we do our report, that a lot of our strategy was based around instructional coaching, but we're actually going to start using some of our funds to support our staffing needs too, so that we can enlist that 18:1 teacher-to-student ratio, not in every classroom, but at least one per building, because the amount is sizable, and then we can sustain some of our staffing funds with the use of that money, as well as some external help or resources that we might need, but we don't want to continue to carry over that amount of funds every year, because that's just not as fiscally responsible as we'd like to be.
Okay.
So I think the important takeaway is we're going to be favorable wherever that might lend itself. And with the goal of transferring those funds into Fund 46. Now, I added that handout from the Joint Finance Committee. And essentially, what's being reported out of the Joint Finance Committee is there's going to be, essentially for Antigo, no new money. So we're going to see a budget increase based on our assumptions. With that said, what I'd like to do is develop next year's budget with to balance it by using Fund 46 to supplement the remodeling budget, and use that as our plan moving forward, so that we, whatever unexpended funds we don't have, or we have available, we sweep those into Fund 46. Jake would know on July 1 what he's got for a budget for the next 12 months. right now, we scramble this time of the year to spend those monies to not only encumber them, but to get the invoices, get the projects cleaned up, to claim the aid. This way, it just gives Jake much more planning time. And if that's the case, I'm going to bring back that budget status report next month. I'll have a preliminary budget based on the assumptions in that budget status report I'll share with you. And I just think that's a very good move going forward.
Okay.
And I think we, over the next 2 years, are really going to have a plan on where we're going as a district, given if we don't, we know now, but we don't know. Once we have that biennial budget, we're really going to have to start planning because that fiscal cliff will be coming.
Okay, we will go on to item F, 2-year physical therapy recommendation.
So Heidi has 2 documents there for you. One is her recommendation, and then the other, the information submitted by both vendors, and then we would ask you to approve her recommendation next month. I'm sorry, later this month. So do you have any questions at this time that Heidi can answer for you?
How many hours a month are we currently utilizing, or are they currently billing? I know that you're, 30 hours was in the proposal, I'm just curious.
Yeah, anywhere between 25 and 30 currently,
Got it.
based on the caseload that we have.
So that's not a locked-in number, that 30 hours a month? I mean, you could go over that or
Yeah.
not?
What I did with Health in Motion 2 years ago was they were, I wouldn't say overbilling, not in a bad way. It was just we had somebody who had been the therapist for a long time, Brenda Will, and I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit and just, we have a checkpoint where if it's over 30, they have to let me know a month in advance so that I can prepare for that, just so, because it's a balancing of minutes and use, and I just wanted to make sure that we had some controls in place.
Okay.
Would we cap it, with the approximate 30 hours? Like, do you cap it, or is it just dependent on the situational student needs?
Yep, it's based on the needs. It's just that's about the caseload we
Yeah.
have, and like Ginny will pull it for me, and I'll look and see what our caseloads are and our minutes and of service, and I that's pretty much average what we've gone the last 5 years since I've been here.
Got it. I assumed as much, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Okay, so the recommendation will come back for approval unless there's further questions here.
I just wanted to comment that I appreciated in your proposal the rapport that is built with the current provider and maintaining that. I thought that was important to point out, and I appreciated that.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to item G, family engagement survey results.
Okay. Heather McCann.
Okay, so you guys were shared a document. We did a summary, just overall. So we've done this survey 3 years in a row, and we've taken it upon the district PBIS, which is our positive behavior intervention support. So we took some of the questions directly out of that, which also is inclusive of academic standards. So it's academic and behavior. And through the survey, we did have 333 total responses back, and then we did a breakdown to each one of our schools. And I wanted to draw attention to West Elementary did get back the most return, and they were very intentional in doing that. So what we learned as a district, that if you're going to be intentional about that, have your teachers involved in it and have a goal around that with your school, that you're going to get that feedback. So we're all planning on being much more intentional and sharing it out with our staff so that they can also share it out with the caregivers and just be more intentional around it. So the feedback was telling us, obviously being customer service is something that we are focusing on. And so where it says welcome, that's really what that entitles. And most of the time, that's like that first person you're seeing right in that office. And then it also goes into how are we replying back to emails and what other different kinds of conversations. We also, part of this welcome comes through our Class Dojo that we use from 4K through 5th grade. And Class Dojo really helps families connect with their school and their teacher. And we've seen a huge increase now that our schools are all doing the same thing versus doing their own little apps. And then once they get to 6th grade and up, we really just kind of focus in with the emailing. But we do have really good feedback with the Class Dojo. Then some of the other things that we want to draw attention to is that even through a pandemic year, the responses that came back, most families felt comfortable supporting academic progress. We did have one question in regards to Canvas, because it was a new learning management system. And so we threw that in there for our tech team. And at that point in time when this was given was around March, and we gave them 1 month to fill in the survey. It was about an overall, 55% overall were pleased with those that responded with our learning management system, which again, this is a very difficult year and there's a lot thrown at our families and thrown at our teachers and our community. So we were good with that response, and we will continue with Canvas, not just because of this response rate, but just a lot of different conversations within the school community. And then we wanted to also communicate about, we focus on positive acknowledgement, so how are students and caregivers getting any type of positive feedback? So you could get it through emails, Class Dojo, through websites, different things like that, but then we really focused it on postcards and personalized shout outs to students. So we found out today that our high school actually had a 100% rate. They not only tracked all the students, they also tracked that the staff was 100% giving out the positive contacts. So as a district, we're focusing on that, so that's why we drew attention to the positive acknowledgement. We also recognize that just getting a postcard or just getting a recognition isn't the end all to a positive relationship. So we're continually trying to work through that. And then the one that we really need to work on is the question about RTI. And RTI is response to intervention. And so earlier this year, we presented in regards to our student support system, and that's for academic and behavior. And what we need to get better at is communicating how we're supporting their child at school. What are the standards that the students need to have? And then if they don't have it, how are we providing interventions? And that could be inclusive of title or whatever that may look like. So one thing we are working on, and Amy Downs is helping us take the lead. Megan Murphy helped really correlate and analyze a lot of this information, so I want to give her a little shout out. She's our school psych. We're also working on what are the standards and how can we easily and readily have our caregivers see them so that they know exactly where their child is. So a letter grade, not really capturing all the standards. So we know that we have some work with that. So that is the biggest area of concern for us, and we do have a plan in place to be created, and I think we're going to plan on launching it this fall.
Yeah, so our teams have done a lot of really great work about identifying their essential standards, but we've never recorded it out in a shared way where parents could access it, or even sometimes carry over from one teacher who might leave or retire to the next teacher has maybe been a challenge. So we've been working on a document that will link all of the standards that teachers have deemed as essential, which that work is complete. And then that will help to fit into when we get in our curriculum review cycle more regularly. I have more time this summer, so I'm really hopeful that I can get that all ironed out into you hopefully by July.
And so we were actually working on that prior to the survey results, but every single one of our schools was pretty much at 30% or less that a caregiver could respond if they understood RTI and or understood what our support system was. So we're happy to hear that we have an area of growth and that we have a plan for that. Two more things that we wanted to focus on. We did have questions around family engagement and some title questions, so we did share that directly back to our title team. But along with that, CHAMPS, our current PTO, we're obviously floundering a little bit as in what that could look like and how do we really like capture our caregivers and get more involvement. So for those of you who weren't a part of it, we used to have more elementary schools. Each school had their own PTO. And then all of a sudden, all of our schools are kind of closing, and then we brought it all in. So CHAMPS really is caregivers. You know, the acronym is focusing on helping and motivating parents. And that's something that we have to figure out yet. So now that we've been reestablished at our schools, and I think people feel pretty connected at their east, west, and north at the middle school now, our goals really are next year is to continue to work with CHAMPS, but then how do we really develop that community with back in their school too? So not just the district, but how do we do that at the school? And I think a lot of that came from, everybody had their own money at their school, and I think a lot of that was kind of dictating the bringing together, but now that that's really not the big focus anymore, I think we've been pretty creative in trying to figure things out. So we really want to partner with that, so this data was very powerful to the team, say, hey, we got to look at some things and see what we can do to make improvements. So I think that's pretty much about it. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Heather.
Okay. And then item H is milk bids for 2021, 2022.
Sarah's required by the school lunch program to put this out for bid. I don't know if it's every year or every other year. I believe it's every other. But she essentially received one bid, and that's the same Morning Glory bid that she's received from this vendor for as long as I can remember. And Kemp's has got a letter in there that they're not interested in bidding. And it's become over time, it's become kind of a regional thing. There are approved vendors by the DPI, and this one is the one that's bid, it's the only one that she's got to receive.
Okay. So we'll bring that back for approval at the regular board meeting.
Peace Distributing is the one that delivers the milk to the buildings.
Is the milk program a big thing in all states or just Wisconsin?
I'm thinking it's, JD, I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. I was just curious. I didn't.
What's the question?
Is it in all states? I don't know. Wisconsin does a little thing with Milk Break too, and I don't know if there's a state portion of the program, and I don't know if that's true of all states.
I kind of think we should have a potato time too.
Then we gotta have a strawberry time now. Okay, so we'll go into item I, selection of Dr. Sprague's evaluation dates. And so in past years, we've been doing the evaluation in July, so.
So knowing that we have one meeting in July, and that's when we'll go over the results, but when would you like this sent to you? Because you complete it electronically. And so when would it be sent, and when would you like the due date so that we're ready for the July meeting?
What is the date of the July meeting?
21st.
21st? And Mary Kay, you compiled this last year, right? The evaluation? Or who
It
compiled
was
it?
Excel, wasn't it?
Right,
Right.
Dustin arranges so that you can see the scores, the comments, and the average, I believe. We'll do it the same way, if that's okay with
We
you.
don't have a count. Is it the 22nd? Sorry.
22nd.
I'll take a look.
And Dustin, it doesn't require a lot for it to get compiled?
No, it doesn't make very long.
So a couple days or a week or what?
I could do it probably in a day.
My calendar says the 27th.
done it the third Thursday
Oh.
in July because we don't have a committee of the whole.
Okay, so the,
We've done it
Third Tuesday.
third Tuesday, so
so the 20th.
it's one meeting in July.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
7th,
No, it's
14th.
The 20th.
That could be changed.
So if we said it had to be due by the Friday, maybe we'll let Justin work on it on Friday, by the Thursday before, would that be reasonable? That would be
15th.
the 15th, yeah, it's a nice round number.
So when Dustin sends that to you, then we'll have the due date on there and, of the 15th.
You can send us some reminders, like last year. We had last
Sure.
year.
Sure.
Hey, Dustin, is this one of those where you have to do the whole thing in one sitting?
Yes.
Oh, God, I hate those. Okay, thanks. I like to
But
think
about
about
it.
it.
Didn't you-
Look at it.
did you make it available so we had it all, we could
Oh,
have
yeah,
it?
yeah, that's true, because that was a discussion last year. Yeah, we can leave it open where you can come back, if you'd like to do that again this year.
It was pretty long, wasn't it? Now that I.
It's like 30 questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think if, I don't know what July 1st is, but
It's a Thursday.
Thursday.
if he just starts it on July 1st, is that enough time for everybody?
Perfect.
So 2-ish weeks?
Okay.
Okay. Scare that. Then we have the 2021, 2022 WIA membership renewal.
You'll see on this attachment also, we do this every year. However, if you are looking for girls wrestling, you'll see a handwritten check mark. And that's because WIAA allowed us to do that. We do have growing interest in girls wrestling. In fact, we have one female wrestler who's leaving her mark even nationally, so that'll be really exciting to watch, but that's why that one is in pen. And then we would bring this back to you again for approval later this month.
Okay. And then we have CISA 6 contracts.
So attached, you have a copy of all of our contracts for CISA 6 for next year. So some of you might know, we've been working and partnering with CISA 6 for several years. And compared from this year to moving into next year, we've decreased the amount of spending by about 20%. And we're going to continue to refine and continue to take some of that ownership into our school district with our systems. We're hoping to lessen the external support that we need, but we have bolstered some of the learning that are happening at 4K in our classrooms, and we've seen an improvement. We want to continue that into next year to have them ready for learning in K, and we're seeing some good results there. Another addition in there that we haven't really been able to make as much traction as we would have liked to with was high school ELA. We're looking at having some targeted support there for revamping some of our standards, our assessments, and how we deliver instruction at the high school level as well. So there are a few other components that we're finishing up to complete our literacy approach, but then I would venture to guess that as we move into next year, you would see an even more significantly decreased amount contracting with CISA 6. Also, we will have contracts with other CISAs, with our closest CISA that will come next month. Some of you have asked me about, I'm not really one to be a proponent of a side of the reading wars, but I know some of you have asked about science of reading versus units of study. We're we're sending our K-1 teachers, which you'll see in the weekly update to the foundational literacy course offered by CSUN 9, and then we'll have some extending support on how to better engage that foundational reading platform for our K-1 readers so that we're not missing anything when they're young. And we don't have any gaps. We want teachers to feel empowered that they can make the best decisions, and this course will really provide those steps for them. And we'll also have some contracts and other supports for our title teachers as well, as we develop, as Heather alluded to earlier, that RTI system of supports for interventions and what we do at different layers of support for our students who are struggling.
And teachers are going to CSUN 9 for that training this week or next week?
There is a group starting this week. We're hosting at Antigo. Antigo is hosting a virtual session, and we have about 8 of our teachers attending this session. Then we have a few more who couldn't make this session because they were teaching summer school or something else, either going to Edgar, or there's a session that's in person later this summer at CSUN 9 in Tomahawk. And that will be all of our K-1 teachers, and it was optional for second grade teachers.
Okay.
Is it like a day-long thing, or?
It's actually 4 days with a support day built into the school year to follow up.
Okay.
Jim, we're doing great.
Okay, we're on item L, academic progress, end of year report.
All right, it's me and my team again. Some of you might have remembered that from mid-year.
For a second, I thought it was a joke and you were going to kill her by yourself. But
No,
I see all
no.
those people coming to join you.
They'll chime in. Okay, so some of these slides will be repeat for some of you who were here mid-year because there's some informative, but that doesn't really make sense. Informational slides that will explain some of the things that we are required by DPI to report to you as far as our AGR funds are dictated by. Some feedback you gave us from last time was a little bit simpler terms, not so much jargon. So we've practiced that a little bit and put that into place. And we're also consistent in our reporting out. We use the same measure across all levels this time. So we had some different measures last time and that seemed confusing. So we were consistent this time. So I'll start out. Please interject if you have a question. I'll try to pause, and if I'm not pausing enough, just please interrupt me. Okay, so earlier this year, you approved our continuous improvement goals. We just wanted to show that the connection here is that we are working towards our district achievement goal. And although academic achievement, and although we're not able to report out on specifics because we don't have all of our test results back for like forward exam or state comparisons to ACT, we will give you a little glimpse of ACT data for the high school that's longitudinal for us, but it won't be a state comparison. We don't have that yet. But this is benchmarking data that then goes into the larger state testing. So benchmarking data happens 3 times a year. So our data source that we are using, as mentioned before, is called FastBridge. This is a data point that our teachers use maybe to relook at their small group instruction or maybe what they need to do to help their students within the classroom. And a lot of our buildings are using it to monitor progress of their individual building goals, or teachers might use it for their SLO, which is related to their personal improvement and how they're setting goals for themselves. So we're starting off here with some district-wide. So this is across the district, and this is how you'll see it consistently reported out on every slide. We're looking at growth. And so these are not proficiency levels, these are amounts of growth that our students made this year. And this was a purposeful decision, and this is why. Our elementary principals made a conscious choice to measure growth this year because there's a percentile of 80% growth. If our students are showing a percentage of 80% growth, that they are meeting, we'll be making our proficiency markers year after year after year. And we thought in a year of COVID and many barriers, whether we had at-home learners of about 30 to 25% to start the year, sometimes limited contact because of quarantines or before. We just wanted to show that our students consistently were able to make some pretty good gains, even despite some of those challenges. So we're really proud of our growth, and we want to show that to you. Now, that's not to say we don't have some rooms for improvement, but we just wanted to share that we're being consistent. So what do these abbreviations mean? So on the left bar, that's flat to moderate growth. So maybe students were showing no growth, meaning flat, or it was moderate, a moderate amount of growth. Blue is expected growth, what we would want from a student at that grade level, or accelerated growth. So they're actually showing more growth than their normed same age peer. So here you can see K through 1, we're very close to that 80th percentile, where we are having expected to accelerated growth. And in grades 2 through 11, we're at about high 60s to 70%. And the reason that we separated by these two groups is because it's two different assessments. They don't measure the same things at K through 1 as they do at 2 through 11, because earlier you might have caught on that the teachers we are sending to the foundational literacy, it's a little bit of a different game at K1. So that was for
Say that one
reading.
more time, so 70% of the kids got how much growth to be?
You're hoping
Blue on
for
the
your
table.
system to be healthy at 80% are reaching that expected to accelerated growth in any given time period.
And how much growth is expected to accelerate growth? Or is that the norm, Massbridge amount of growth?
Yeah. And those numbers continually adjust in FAST. They are updated as more schools take more assessments. They adjust their numbers, and those norms adjust with that as well. So we also have some math data.
How does it look if you do just kindergarten and first grade alone? Is one grade way better than the other? Or
You'll
is
see
it-
in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Good question. So here's our math growth as well. You'll hear in a moment some strategies we'll be putting in for math. We're focusing on math next year as well as a system. So we got a double-edged sword going on with ELA and math. But here you can see those growth categories. And again, the same split at K1 and then 2 through 11. So now we're getting to the focus of our AGR reporting, which is required by state. I included some slides of what AGR is. I'm not going to read that to you, but earlier you heard us allude to instructional coaching was our primary focus for a long time. Now next year in our applications, we're dipping into number 3 now with adjusting to some staffing. We have to be cognizant then of what that looks like with student to teacher ratios. We're more easily able to do that though, honestly, with having 2 classrooms per track at each school. With 1 teacher, that would be a challenge. And then just some parts of what we need to do for our AGR planning as required by the state. And you'll see some demographics in a moment of what our current status is for our students and our subcategories of our students. So as mentioned earlier, this is the same goal we had. We wanted 80% of our students demonstrating a growth rate at or above the 50th percentile, measured by that health. And that's also the same reporting measure we'll use for middle school to show you and high school, so it'll be consistent throughout. All right, so now I'm going to hand it off to Tom. Tom, if I don't flip it when you want, just let me know.
Okay. So I have the next 2 slides that basically focus on some demographic data of our students. And, of course, as you know, this was a challenging school year with parents having the option for remote learning, which caused some challenges with our FastBridge assessment. So we have a fall assessment window, winter and spring, and didn't always have 100% of the kids participating. So we had worked things out with our remote teachers and our title teachers to make contact with the remote learners and have as many of them participate. So you can see how enrollments are listed there by each grade level and other percentages for gender and disability, economic status. This slide breaks down some ethnic subgroups within our schools, mainly the elementary level. So at
think considering those challenges that families and students faced, and as Amy mentioned, we have room to grow, but overall, we're pleased with how our students perform.
This demographic data is only for our K through 3 students across all 3 grade levels.
On the previous, 2 slides ago, non-EL is referring to, at the second to bottom, non-EL.
English learners, English language.
So I feel like I'm confused on that one.
Somebody who's learning English as their second language, so they have a different language perhaps spoken in the home, or start out speaking a different language.
So the non-EL 98% would say, it says 98%
English speaking.
Okay. See, I read it the opposite, that's how I was confused. Okay, thank you.
So some things to consider, this FastBridge testing it's inclusive of all students. We do have a very small portion, probably less than 1% of our students that do not take the forward exam or the FastBridge exam, and that may be a student who also wouldn't take the forward exam as well. This is just data from kindergarten through 3rd grade. 4K data is not included in here. This year what we did do in the spring was we did assess our 4K students in the spring based on the fall kindergarten assessment. So it does give us some baseline data as to where those 4K students are coming in. But again, this data is just our kindergarten through 3rd grade. Some other things to note is that, as mentioned by both Amy and Tom, that this was students both in person and remote. And we did have several students that started remote and then returned to in person. Some students that were remote may have taken the test at home in the fall, and then come winter, they may have taken it in person, and you may have seen a difference in the scores. You know, there may have been a caregiver there helping them a little bit, you know what I mean? So it's hard to really look at the validity of some of those remote students if they took it at home. Although there were some that we could see, you know, the accurate data as well. Some strategies that we included, we talked about our coaching support. You know, Antigo as a whole has really been noted as a district that has continued our professional development. Not all districts did continue that coaching support. So we did receive our literacy coaching. We did have a small portion of elementary teachers that were in a universal math group that did receive some coaching, and we'll continue. In another slide, I'll talk to you about what our future plans are with coaching as well, and we'll continue that literacy as well as math.
So is our CESA 6 literacy training what
Yes.
we are using that ADR money for? Or is that...
Partially. So we use ADR money for the CESA 6 literacy training as well as our Math Institute training, and we had CP, Connie Persick's coaching.
Did she present to us this year, or was that a different year?
Different year.
That was probably a different year. So we use it for all 3 of those, as well as the administrators did receive coaching support as well. So those all came from AGR funding.
So as Donna notes that not all districts continued with their professional development during COVID, when I would meet with other C&I directors, that was a conversation at the beginning of the year, like, are you still continuing all of your planning? We were one of the few that still continued pretty close to as is as we possibly could. And I feel like we did a lot of learning this year, and I'm proud of that fact too. So thanks for bringing that up, Donna. Too fast.
Janie, this is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Our breakdown by grade level. This is for our K3. So K1 does the early reading and 2-3 does the A reading. So I'm sure there's something that you noticed there that's not like the others. And we talked a little bit to that at winter. We looked at some of our kindergarten data and realized that we do need to make some changes as far as phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. We're still showing up in gaps all the way up to 8th and 9th grade. So we did make those changes at winter, and in fact, we're really proud of the growth. For instance, some of our students from only 3% had had grown at one of our schools. And by the end of the year, they were up to 45%. So they made some shifts in their instruction. They're really proud of what they saw. They're happy that we're sending them to that training that Amy just mentioned. And our 4K staff also has begun a lot of that learning. And when we look at that 4K data that Donna mentioned, we did this spring, we're really excited with the results that we're seeing with that. So we're excited about the direction that we're taking.
What did you guys end up doing with 95% group or whatever the other one was?
We have that for every 4K teacher, and we started implementing that. Now we just bought a kit for all of our kindergarten teachers.
They like it?
They do.
Kids like it? It seems.
It built this knowledge base that we just need to grow that capacity of that understanding of what those early literacy skills are. Some things that maybe kids were coming to us with, they just aren't anymore. You know, they don't know the nursery rhymes. They don't know the syllables. They don't know concepts of print that you go left to right and top to bottom. Those things that they used to know just aren't as solid as they used to be. So we have to teach that.
And what'd you say, so kindergarten had 4K had it?
4K had it this year to try it out, and now we bought kits for kindergarten.
Okay, so they'll have it next year.
They have them now.
They're reviewing them this summer, and we'll have a day in August where we specifically target and teach how to use the resource, and then they'll be expected to use that in the fall.
Do you feel like we're teaching phonics explicitly in kindergarten now? Because 95% group isn't really phonics, right? It's still phoneme awareness.
Right.
It's not explicitly teaching each individual letter sound, right? Is that?
Phonemic awareness and phonological awareness don't have anything to do with print. It's what you hear and what you say. And so you need that base before you start to match the sound to the print, which is phonics. So that's where we saw that no matter how hard we teach letter name, letter sound to match it, they didn't hear those syllables. They didn't hear that onset rhyme. You know, they didn't know what direction things were. They didn't know the concept of a letter, of a word. So those were the things that we saw was really preventing some of our phonics instruction from moving forward.
Thank you. Good questions, and Rachel, good explanation. She has a literacy coaching background, which is very helpful in understanding for a lot of us.
And then there's our.
Are you gonna listen in on that training? See what
Oh yes, Tom, Donna, and I are all being part of that. We're all attending bits and pieces when we can to try to make sure we hit all 4 days. Absolutely.
And did you say all the first grade and kindergarten teachers are going, or is
Correct.
all of them? Okay.
Yep. This is our math data as well, so you can see that that's
Amy, is it online? Or no?
this presentation.
No, the training. Did you say it was virtual?
Yeah, CISA 9 is hosting a virtual session. for
Can I
us.
listen if I'm in my tractor, or is it cost money per person?
She's doing it for us, so I don't know how listenable it is. I know there's a lot of team time and discussion time within that, but I could definitely ask. It starts on Thursday.
Yeah, if I'm in the tractor, maybe sometimes an audiobook.
Okay. So Donna, if you want to talk a little bit about looking ahead.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we are continuing our ELA work and also the kindergarten planning. So our 4K worked on this year, the start of the 95% group as well as name study, and we're looking to incorporate that into kindergarten as well. And then our universal math work. So as I mentioned, we did start with a smaller team, but all of our teachers are now part of our universal math work and have started with the standards work and will be receiving coaching support. We're again going to be pairing with the Math Institute of Wisconsin. We had Paige Richards as our coach this year, and then as I mentioned, aligning the standards. Additional systems of support. I mentioned that the coaching, not only for teachers, but also for administrators. So we too are receiving coaching to best support our students in both literacy and math. And all three, Tom, Rachel, and I did attend the literacy and part of the math as well.
So now, last time when we had shifted to secondary, we had reported out some different data. This time you'll see similar data as we move into secondary updates. So 4th through 7th, Heather?
Okay, so you can see we're not at that 80%, so we looked at our data this spring. A lot of information that was talked about with remote and in-person learning, all those factors fall the same here as well. We really noticed that our 4th grade data last year as well was not at a rate that we really wanted it to be. So we really feel that part of that transition from 3rd to 4th grade, like we have to be much more intentional and we have to grab that information right away. So what we come up with our title teachers and coaches through the FastBridge assessments, they're having needs assessments. So right now we have all of the needs of our students for reading and phonics and broken down into what their biggest gaps are individually. And we have them already grouped for intentional small group instruction right when we start for school next year. Not only for 4th grade, but then also 5th, 6th, and 7th. And we just feel like, you know how you start the beginning of the year, you go through a lot of routines and things. Well, we need to do those routines throughout the year. So we're not gonna like wait too much. We're gonna let them feel comfortable, build their relationship, but we already have a plan in place versus waiting till maybe the end of October before we're hitting some of these gaps. So we already have that in place. We did have students that moved, but they didn't move at the rate that would take them to that next level. And we're really focusing with our PLCs, having those conversations around the FastBridge assessment. So when you're in 4th and 5th grade, you're teaching all content. So that's a very natural conversation, but bringing in, not just waiting for these FastBridge scores, but how are we gonna be able to, you know, get a beat on how a student is doing just at a flexible and a faster rate so that we don't wait.
Testing?
What?
Is it testing content in 4th and 5th grade? Like, you know, history or science, or is it
Well,
like
forward
a
exam,
question?
forward exam, you have 4 content.
Yeah.
This
But
we're
not
focusing in on the A reading and the A math.
And so what, is that similar for the younger grades as it is for 4 through 7? It's
Yes.
phoneme awareness, can you read this word? Is it like even can you read this sentence? Or is it not even that?
Well, there's comprehension, there's different, the A reading is focusing in on.
I actually have it written down because I thought one of you might ask that question. So if we go back to district reading growth, if we focus on that K1 level where we initially split, and I did have this on the slide, but we thought it was a little wordy. There's things about concepts of print, onset sounds, letter names, rhyming, blending, segmenting, oral repetition, sentence reading. But then when you get into that A reading, it focuses on language, foundational skills, informational reading, and then reading literature. Similar for the math. When you're at the K1 level, you're composing and decomposing numbers, identifying numbers, sequencing, place value, story problems. And when you get into the A math, it's about counting, algebraic thinking, operations, measurement and data, geometry, ratios, number system, expressions, functions, and probability.
I should almost have you bring a question for every area sometime, you know, just like present
That's
it
what our
like
board
that.
exam does, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just so you would show, you know, like
Yeah.
informational reading, like what that means in terms of a question versus, what'd you say, literature? You know, that would just be interesting to see for a 4th grader or something. Just
We
because it's
got-
hard to, you know, like it's easier to understand the younger
Interesting.
grades because you're learning
Sample questions.
some version of phoneme awareness of phonics. But even, maybe even that would be interesting. You know, just for, you know, 1 minute, give us a question. You could even ask us the question, we could try to answer it and see if we can do 4th grade math.
Maybe that
or
could be our
4th grade,
icebreaker next time.
Yes. I see if we can answer it. I'm definitely.
Daniel will give you the kindergarten, you seem nervous.
You talked about the time of the test, like the forward exam, there's no time, the kids can take as long as they want to answer questions. But when you're in the FastBridge, it's a different pace. And we took these tests pretty close in 4th grade. So that was another thing that we talked about, like we have to be very intentional about the purpose of the test, how you're taking the test, things like that. So that's something we learned as well. And then with math, pretty similar. So same types of goals. We're going to focus with ELA right away, and then we're going to bring in math as needed. But we're not only looking at filling those gaps, we do have students that are ready to extend. So we want to make sure that we are having some skills and strategies available for them. And all hands on deck, all of our teachers, coaches, title, anybody who's teaching anything is going to be a part of what we call our win time, which is what I need. And we're truly going to make it what I need, because to start the year out, we're not just focusing in on just some of those academics, but any one of our students that were remote, we're going to start with them being in like some small social groups, because we did get that feedback from some of our parents as well. So academics is one aspect, but we still have our social, emotional things that we need to keep track of as well.
Thank you, Heather. Clint will now share about high school data.
As you can see, you know, some of those same challenges were presented at the high school, along with a little nuance of a different schedule, because we went with that block scheduling piece in order to create less transition time for students. But some of our students really struggled in that, and this is a measure from, you know, the beginning, the middle, and the end of the year. And in 9th grade, we really had a challenge with getting students to take those tests, especially at the beginning of the year, because a number of them were remote, and we sent home some letters. I did dialers, but in-person instruction is really where we've got to get to in order for them, so we can control those outside variables in terms of taking those tests. So we didn't have as big a sample size in 9th grade as we wanted to. But we also, as a school, looked at the achievement data in 8th and 9th grade for both reading and math, is on the next slide. And those achievement scores aren't where we want them either. And so we're doing some changes in terms of how we're operating our 9th through 12th grade ELA curriculum, as well as putting a focus on getting some of these, you know, with the actual test-taking process. So to alleviate some of that in 9th grade, this next year, our schedule will every student will have an ELA class. So last year, it could be that a student didn't have an ELA class when they took this A-reading test. So we had to have them testing in a different environment with a teacher doing it for the first time, and it didn't always go smoothly. Next year we won't have that challenge, and we won't hopefully have the remote challenge either. We're on the math one. You back up just one second. Because also there's, in math, you know, there's a noticeable difference there in 9th grade with the expected and accelerated growth. But again, I want to take that with a grain of salt because of that low sample size that we had in there. So we didn't get too excited about that, because when we're looking at the achievement data, you know, we have to look at all of those measurements in terms of our future planning. All right. Overall, we don't have a state comparison. Well, never mind, that's the next slide. But as you can see here, this is our composite ACT score data. So last year we were at 17.8, this year we're at 18.0. We had a trend of going down, but just like when you throw a ball up in the air, it has to stop before it comes down, and we're hopefully on that trend in the positive direction there.
What's it happen if you go back further? Is it like, you know, 18 under that year that it was 20, was an exceptionally better year for us? Because the national average is what, 22 or something? Or is it
the state? Well, we don't look at the national one. We look at the state one, which has continued to drop too. And but I'm not sure what would happen if we look back further.
Yeah, because I thought the national average was higher or lower than the state average. Not that obviously you want to be higher, but I'm just curious. I'll do the Google.
But I think, you know, we want to catch the state, but first we've got to stop. We got to stop ourselves from going down. And so that was an encouraging sight to see when we looked at that. It's not where we want to be by any means.
Current national ACT average is 20.8.
It's what?
20.8.
So we're looking at that continued ELA work, which I mentioned. We're also the universal math team. We're taking a look at our math curriculum as a whole. We've got some instructional coaching supports, which I really appreciate us having that secondary coach, and Amy and Heather and I, along with some other stakeholders, are meeting to figure out how we can best utilize those pieces. Anything else that I missed, Amy, that you want to mention?
No, I just want to note that we're really trying hard to not only be comprehensive in how we look at our systems of implementation for ELA, math, and when it gets to science and social studies time, but also target when specific areas need a little bit more, such as kindergarten or fourth grade or high school, because you can do a systems approach, but there might still be some pockets. So it's kind of a lot to juggle, but I'm excited that we're moving in a direction to also address math, and our teachers are as well. They're very excited. And I had shared with you the universal math vision draft that they had come up with as a team to start off next year.
Is there any discussion or correlation with ELA and increased use of technology in terms of potentially lower achievement scores? Like separating or moving away from like physically writing and reading to using screen to type and read? I've always been very interested in if there's a correlation there or a negative impact with our societal, not specific to district, shift to technology use.
I've read the societal research. I know what you're saying about that, but in terms of academic achievement, I'm not aware of any, but.
I've just started reading some about lower ACT scores and correlating with increased technology. Just because the learning, we talk about different learning styles, but I don't know how technology impacts learning styles if it's more centered upon use of technology and how you're using technology versus other. I don't know, I'm just throwing out.
When we looked at getting rid of cell phones in the classroom, there were some studies, I don't know if, there are other factors that it could have been too, but we did look at some schools that when they put this in place, then their ACT scores had risen. And that was part of the factor in us going that route at the high school. There are schools in Wisconsin too, and I can't say here's the study because that was quite a while ago. But
yeah, I don't know either. I just have read, because if you're handwriting, you're writing sentence structure, but if you're typing, you're getting a red underline, so you're actually not comprehending to learn. And
right.
I'm not saying you're not learning. I shouldn't say that. It's just different.
It's different skill set you're learning. So our structures in the classroom really support that independent reading and writing right now, and it's a lot of student-led choice with supporting with them with strategies to be better readers, better writers, and to do that independently and really foster that. So although we do have one-to-one, we don't substitute that for good teaching and practicing as a student. It's more of a supplement, not a teacher. We don't want to replace our qualified teachers in any way, but that is interesting because it's been a huge shift, and it can be. We went away from cell phones at the middle school, and we saw the focus on academics increase just because it wasn't a concern or a wonder or a worry. So know that we will come back to you in the fall when we start our progress again, and mid-year, then end of the year. But if you have any other questions beyond this, feel free to reach out to me too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're up to item M, new course proposal, AHS Mathematics for the trades.
so you have that course proposal in front of you, and I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch the video from Mr. Knetter, but he describes kind of what the basis of that applied math is the NGC dual credit term for it. We're calling it mathematics for the trades because we're weaving in with Mr. Parizek and Mr. Knetter tag teaming on that math course, wanting to provide that as an option for students who are on that trades pathway. And really, some of the prerequisites for that say you need to take 3 classes of CTE courses before you qualify for this option, but we want to provide another option for students other than Algebra 2, and Algebra 2 is definitely still an option, but for those students that are going specifically for the trades, we want to have them focus on some specific things that might be more applicable to the career that they're venturing into after high school. So when you look at that course proposal or watch that video, what questions came to you that aren't answered yet?
Okay. So,
I was excited to see the course proposal. I thought that was very creative, and it really seems to tie into our student population and our community and jobs available here. So I was excited to see the proposal. That's my feedback.
And we have heard from manufacturers in town, you know, when we had the career fair, but also manufacturing visits where potential employers would come speak to our students and ask questions. They are ready and they'll help our students in any way possible be prepared, those who are going into the world of work. And we feel like this is an intermediate step where they can become more familiar with what on-the-job training might look like in terms of mathematic knowledge. So we're excited to see where it goes to. I will draw your attention to the policy that's updated there. At the next meeting then, we would ask you to approve an amendment to this policy, which Mary Kay and I would then work with Neola to finalize. But under letter A for the graduation requirements, it currently reads 3 credits of mathematics, including algebra, Alg 2, and geometry. We would change that to say 3 credits of mathematics, including algebra, mathematics for the trades, or algebra 2, and geometry. So,
And I just want to emphasize that students would still be earning dual credits with this. They'd actually be earning 2 credits for it, 1 math credit and 1 CTE credit. You know, and sitting, I was at the FFA banquet last night and talking with an individual who was going on to River Falls and talking about the transferring of certain credits because then she didn't have to take X, Y, and Z courses at the next level. So for these students who are taking this, they would still benefit from that dual credit option.
Is Algebra 2 required for a lot of colleges? Like, would they take statistics instead? Could that be a different option, another one, or is that, I can't remember, we did dual credit for a while on statistics, or Tom like that a while ago, but.
That I don't know.
Tom, do you know that?
I didn't hear the question.
A couple of years ago, you were interested in a high school statistics class. Could that be a replacement, like as another OR on Algebra 2? Or I don't even know if we offer one. Did we get one at the Tech or something, a dual credit or something, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on offerings that match up that the tech offers that would apply for dual credit. There is, you know, in the AP area, there's a statistics class, but I know there's a variety of applied math classes that are either specific to different programs at NPC or general requirements.
So if a student wanted to take that, they just have to take it in addition. They wouldn't be able to count it as Algebra 2.
DPI suggests in their language that a course such as this, or also a computer science class, could substitute as the Alg 2 requirement. So I'm hopeful that at some point we can come to you with a computer science option for our students as well who would like to go into that field, to be that substitute for the Algebra 2. But DPI language does require this 3rd level, so stats might have to be like
Okay.
class.
But just so the most colleges require Algebra 2? Is that why we have that in the requirements, or is it?
I'm not sure.
Actually, Jesse Knetter shared the history of this before, certainly my time, well, before my time working here anyway. And what he indicated is when the board, the state actually required 3 credits of math, that is what this district offered, was that sequence, Alg, Alg 2, geometry. And so we didn't have, you know, it was adopted because that is what the kids took. And so for the first time now since then, we're looking at an alternative to Alg 2.
Okay. And we'll keep going along here then. Report of employee resignations. Somebody like
I
that.
move the board accept the following resignations. Carissa Kohler, North Elementary second grade teacher, and Katie Welch, North Elementary kindergarten teacher.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then we will go on to closed session. So we'll have a consideration of a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 1G for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is is likely to become involved, specifically discussion of the appeal of the Mattoon School property decision and Hush Blackwell proposed settlement. So, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn to closed session.
Second.
And a roll call.
Pardo,
Yes.
Halsey,
Yes.
Dean, Eric Nelson,
Yes.
Neufeld, Hyatt,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
and Mary.
Yep.